This is Tech Fails, and today we're digging up the digital artifacts of a social media titan that went from global dominance to a definitive cautionary tale. We're talking about MySpace, the platform that, despite having a massive head start, completely stumbled over its own cluttered code and a catastrophic failure to adapt. This wasn't just a site getting old. This was a spectacular failure of vision and management. MySpace became a corporate case study in how to lose everything. Get ready to discuss a true technology scandal of mismanagement and truly missed opportunities. The platform's demise paved the way for a cleaner, hungrier competitor named Facebook. This analysis is about how a $580 million acquisition turned a vibrant online community into a slow, ad-choked digital wasteland. Let's start with the hook. The days when MySpace was everyone's first friend. For a brief, beautiful period in the mid-2000s, MySpace actually was the internet for an entire generation. It was a digital Wild West where you were the sheriff, the architect, and the DJ of your own personal domain. If you were online between 2005 and 2008, you knew Tom. He was famously everyone's designated first friend. MySpace was absolutely massive in its heyday. It was a digital launchpad for bands, a real hub for artists, and the epicenter for new careers. This was the site where you meticulously curated your coveted top 8 friends. That top 8 was a digital popularity contest that caused genuine, real-world drama for teenagers everywhere. By 2006, the scale of MySpace was undeniable. It was the most visited website in the United States, actually outpacing even Google for a brief moment. It was a social network built on raw self-expression. Think custom backgrounds, ear-splitting autoplay music, blinking GIFs, and HTML-fueled design chaos. This expressive, customizable environment was actually the platform's greatest strength. But this chaotic freedom was also the first crack in the foundation. It would eventually lead to one of the biggest failed projects in tech history. Success, especially in the fast-moving tech world, often breeds a devastating complacency. MySpace became the perfect example of a company that stopped innovating the moment it convinced itself it had already won. The real beginning of the end for MySpace, the critical moment the clock started ticking on its downfall, was in 2005. This was when Rupert Murdoch's media giant News Corporation purchased the platform. The acquisition cost them a staggering $580 million. On paper, this seemed like a major validation. A massive media company acquiring the hottest social property on the internet was huge news. But in reality, this acquisition quickly turned into a genuine tech acquisition nightmare. News Corp saw MySpace not as a dynamic technology platform that required continuous improvement, but purely as a media asset. They viewed MySpace as a giant, instantaneous billboard for making quick advertising money. The core priority immediately shifted entirely away from user experience and technical health. Instead, the focus became aggressive monetization at all costs. This new corporate mandate led directly to the first major technical misstep. The site was soon completely inundated with advertisements. Do you remember those aggressive, sometimes pop-up style banner ads that covered the screen? The ones that actually slowed your computer to a crawl? They were absolutely everywhere on MySpace. The massive corporate pressure to hit near impossible revenue targets meant that every available pixel of screen real estate was sold off. This cash grab mentality completely alienated the user base. This revenue obsession was compounded by MySpace's already disastrous technological foundation. Unlike the clean, simple, and centrally managed design of its nascent competitor, Facebook, MySpace's backend was a catastrophe. The code was, by all accounts, an unmaintainable massive spaghetti ball mess. The initial strength profile customization, allowing users to inject their own HTML and CSS, had turned into a massive technical liability. User profiles became a total cacophony of bloated code, jarring auto-playing MIDI files, and massive, extremely slow-loading images. This self-expression came at a devastating technological cost. The result of this mess was a disastrous user experience that pushed people away. Firstly, load times were painfully slow, especially on the dial-up and early broadband connections common in the mid-2000s. Secondly, the so-called Frankenstein code base, as one former developer called it, was incredibly fragile. It was unstable, constantly buggy, and extremely difficult for engineers to update or improve efficiently. This fundamental inability to innovate quickly meant that MySpace was perpetually playing a frustrating game of catch-up. They simply could not move as fast as the competition. Finally, there was a complete lack of necessary scalability. The site simply wasn't built for the massive scale it reached, and the new corporate owners refused to invest in the fundamental infrastructure needed to fix it. This tragic lack of investment in core technology, driven solely by a corporate focus on short-term revenue, is the textbook definition of a technology scandal. It was a complete disregard for the product's long-term health. This catastrophic short-sightedness eventually led to the platform's spectacular and unavoidable failure. The focus on immediate profit over long-term stability sealed its fate. Meanwhile, while MySpace was slowly suffocating under too many ads and disastrous code, a new player was quietly evolving in the background: Facebook. Facebook was not just another social network. It represented a fundamental, revolutionary shift in what an online identity was supposed to mean. It solved the problems MySpace created. MySpace was the land of aliases, often edgy usernames, and highly curated, frequently fictional personas. This anonymity fostered some creativity, but it also created an environment ripe for scams and spam. Crucially, this anonymity also enabled genuine safety concerns, namely the problems with online predators that generated negative press and severely harmed the platform's overall reputation. Facebook, however, pioneered the concept of demanding and enforcing a real identity. Starting in colleges, it insisted that you use your actual name and connect only with people you genuinely knew in real life. This created an immediate, powerful, and genuine value proposition for the users. It was designed as a utility for real-world social life, not just an anonymous performance space like MySpace. For a rapidly maturing user base, the new standard of simplicity and the promise of authenticity offered by Facebook were simply irresistible. They moved to the platform that felt more grown-up. But the nail in MySpace's coffin wasn't just a prettier design or real names. It was a superior feature that fundamentally changed how people consumed information online. We're talking about the news feed. Facebook introduced the news feed in 2006, and it instantly redefined social networking. Before this feature, to see what your friends were doing on MySpace, you had to visit each of their individual profile pages. As we've established, those profile pages were cluttered, extremely slow loading, and required frustrating manual effort. It was a tedious, outdated process that discouraged deep engagement. The newsfeed solved this consumption problem with one brilliant innovation. It offered a single, constantly updating, aggregated stream of all your friends' latest activities and updates. This seamless stream was a massive win for user engagement, creating a truly addictive experience. It was a huge, defining loss for MySpace, which couldn't easily build or integrate a similar feature. They were technologically blocked due to their archaic, brittle codebase. It simply was not designed for that kind of real-time, aggregated data delivery. MySpace's engineers were totally handcuffed by bad decisions made years earlier. Their massive $900 million advertising deal with Google further complicated things. That particular deal pegged revenue to page views, effectively incentivizing the company to keep the site clunky and complicated. They needed users to click through as many separate pages as possible. This destructive incentive structure instantly killed any chance of creating a streamlined, modern, newsfeed-like experience. The pursuit of ad revenue actively hampered necessary innovation. By 2008, the shifting dynamics created a clear turning point. Facebook had definitively surpassed MySpace in global user numbers. The migration was swift, massive, and ultimately brutal. By 2009, Facebook had even surpassed MySpace in crucial US traffic. People soon realized they didn't need two social networks. They only needed one that was fast, clean, and reliable. They needed the one that connected them to the people they cared about in the simplest, most efficient way possible. Facebook was that network. MySpace was not. MySpace tried desperately to pivot, attempting to rebrand, clean up its interface, and refocus its entire platform on music. But it was fundamentally too little and, sadly, too late. The public perception had irrevocably shifted by then. MySpace was no longer the exciting place to be. It was quickly becoming the sunset product that felt like a digital antique. The decline was final, and the platform's failure is one of the most important stories in the history of technology scandals and catastrophic corporate mismanagement. It's a masterclass in exactly how to completely fumble a massive, industry-leading advantage in a highly competitive market. Let's review the core lessons from the dust. The number one lesson is that technology must be treated as the core value, not merely a cost center to be minimized. News Corp treated MySpace like a glossy, disposable magazine, prioritizing aggressive ad revenue over the actual technological integrity of the platform. They made a fatal error. They disastrously failed to invest in the basic architecture, allowing the codebase to decay until it became fundamentally unworkable. A strong user experience is absolutely built on a strong, scalable tech stack. If you let the underlying code rot, the users will eventually leave. The second lesson is that user experience must always prevail over aggressive monetization tactics. The intrusive, aggressive advertisements that severely cluttered MySpace pages drove its loyal users away in massive droves. This was a clear, self-inflicted wound. MySpace taught the entire industry a crucial lesson. You cannot possibly monetize your product to the very point of frustrating and alienating your loyal users. The tolerance level is very low. Facebook built its massive empire by prioritizing user growth and engagement first. Only then did they find smarter, less intrusive ways to monetize. MySpace did the reverse, and it paid the ultimate price. The third lesson: you must embrace the shift in the market. MySpace completely missed the industry-wide trend toward real identity and a streamlined, mobile-friendly experience. They were far too deeply invested in the old, chaotic model of customizable self-expression. They didn't fully see that the modern user wanted simplicity, utility, and real-world connection. When the market inevitably shifted, MySpace was slow, locked down by old ad deals, and tragically, technologically incapable of quickly pivoting to meet the new demands. In the end, MySpace was humiliatingly sold in 2011 for a pathetic $35 million. That is a staggering drop from the $580 million News Corp paid just 6 short years earlier. From a valuation and investment standpoint, it is truly one of the most spectacular implosions in the entire history of modern tech. The financial loss alone is a massive technology scandal. So, the next time you log into a clean, fast social network, take a brief moment to remember the blinking cursors, the terrible custom backgrounds, and the inescapable auto-playing music of MySpace. It was the chaotic, messy pioneer that ironically paved the way for everything we seamlessly use today. But its ultimate failure is a chilling, persistent reminder. The lesson is clear. In the unforgiving world of technology, if you stop innovating and investing in the core product, you don't just stand still, you absolutely die. We'll see you next time on Tech Fails, where we examine another spectacular and completely avoidable failure.